Busting out the good camera today because we're taking a brief look at this masterpiece. Oh, precious. Obviously, this isn't the original. It's the print-on-demand reprints that are available at drive-thru. If you don't have a copy of the originals and you've always wanted it, it's only $20 and like $4 for shipping. And it only took like 3 weeks. And I chose the cheapest version of shipping. And yeah, I mean, my original copy was destroyed, I think, twice. So, to get this again for $20 and to get, the trilogy, it's worth it. I'll pick up the other two, next month when finances are back. But the reason why I'm showing this today, by the way, it's the 24th day of June, in case you didn't know, a very historic and sad day. Finally, I have it in my hand. We can unravel the mystery of Appendix N. We've talked about it before. You can't go very long listening to any D&D vlogger without Appendix N coming up. The holy grail of D&D essence of everything that shapes Dungeons and Dragons from the point it was written onward, somehow or another directly is connected through 6 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon, to Appendix N. Now, there's a lot of good stuff in here, obviously. There's a lot of stuff that, is sort of pointless now because the hobby has evolved so much, and it's really only connects to if you're playing AD&D or an OSR game. But Appendix N, which is all the way in the back, so there are a few appendixes. So it goes all the way up to Appendix P, if you were ever curious. So Appendix starts right after the end of the treasure section. On page 169, and it goes all the way to page, not counting the table of contents, 240. So that's almost 100 extra pages of appendix. So I guess the first question is, even before we get into the mystery of Appendix N, is why? Why does it need almost 100 extra pages of appendixes that they couldn't just be put in the normal book? Because appendix is like an afterthought, or references, or like, here's the whole thing, and then the appendix will include the new magic items and anything like that, or tables, or where, an index. But the appendix is like almost a whole separate book. In fact, I'm pretty sure people have turned it into a whole separate book. I wasn't there. I don't know. Best guess, they had the thing, they wrote it down, and then somebody's like, oh, wait, we should add a table for random hats. And they're like, dude, we just finished. Okay, I'll put it in an appendix and a table for random hacks. So that's the, and then they're like, oh, dude, we totally need a table, a section for giving the stats for monsters in case they don't have them. Oh, fine, we'll add that. That'll be another appendix. And then they finish that, and then somebody else is like, dude, we need a table to randomly generate monsters. So I was like, dude, why didn't you tell me this? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the story why we need 100 extra pages of appendix. Just obviously it made sense. Okay, the first one is random dungeon generation. So the misnomer is Appendix N is all of this, which is not. So when people refer to Appendix N, they're only actually referring to the page and a half of suggested readings, which we've all gone through. The rest of this is just tables and information and things. So rather than referring to it as just the Dungeon Master's Guide Appendix, it's generally kind of referred to as to Appendix End. I've got a piece of hair stuck in my mouth. And then somehow Appendix N has sort of become the catch-all for everything in here. But right now, Appendix A is the random dungeon generation table, which we've played with before because there are hundreds of online random dungeon generators now, and most of them are based upon this. So it gives you, this little, here's some starting entrances, and then it gives you tons of amazing tables on how to roll up a random dungeon. One would hope that you've designed your dungeon ahead of time, or if you had to come up with a random dungeon, you had some prep to come up with a random dungeon, because just look at this. Going through all this and rolling on everything and then cross-referencing and then rolling and then cross-referencing, that's like 5 to 10 minutes per room, if that. So behind the scenes, this is great. It's one of the best tools out there. But if you're like sitting at a table and you need a random dungeon now, I would hate to then just sit there and start rolling and rolling. That could take a while. Thankfully, we have apps that do it for us. So that covers about 2 pages. Then we get random wilderness terrain. So there's literally just information to randomly generate terrain and what you might find on the terrain. Then we got wandering monsters divided by encounter level and area. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including the astral and earthreal plane random table, 6, 7 pages. And then it presents us with a breakdown with every monster that was in the monster manual. So if you don't have the monster manual and you're designing something, here's a breakdown for every monster. Now this is what the appendix should be. Breakdown of every monster and the random generation tables. Do you really need the random encounter tables? Shouldn't they have just been in the section on encounters? Maybe it should, but then we're repeating them. So I would say, yeah, we could have the random encounter tables in there again. We have random city and town encounters. This is Appendix C. We've got the classic picture of a miracle of the chaotic. We've got explanations for every monster. What the fuck's a Rakasha? Then we have random generation of creatures from the lower planes. Appendix D is how to randomly generate demons. Because I guess the idea was that the outer planes are so chaotic that even if we presented a bunch of demons, if you wanted to make up your own demons, here's some tables to make up random demons. Because the 15 or whatever we put in the book might not be enough and you don't have imagination to make up your own. And if anybody argues with you that that's not a demon, you can just go, dude, Dungeon Masters, I use the table. Not every demon you encounter is going to be one of these 15. There might be other demons, that's not every demon. I don't, you know how I feel about that. It's like, I don't need this table. Every demon I need is already there. And if I need to make a new demon, I'll just take another monster and reskin it. I don't need this table. And then we have the alphabetical list of monsters again, because the table here wasn't enough. Here's a new table doing the exact same thing, but in alphabetical order. Yeah, no, that table's completely unnecessary because you already put that table on. And this is Appendix E, and this is like 10 pages. Nope, about 13 pages it looks like. Then we get Appendix F, rules on gambling. Did that need an appendix? Could that just not been in the section of city adventures? Do you really need rules for gambling? That could have been someplace else. Then we get Appendix G, how to generate traps, randomly generating traps, and explanations for the traps. And then we got an Appendix I, which is random dungeon generation of things that you might find in your dungeon. So this should have been in the section where the random dungeon is, instead of in a separate section. This could have just been another table in Appendix A, random dungeon generation, and random things you might find in each room. If you really want to get nitty gritty. Okay, there's a sound of slamming doors. It's very damp in here. And you find a sideboard, a balance and weights, and a flagon, and some apricots. Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that these tables exist because they spark ideas of what you might find in a row, but also it's a huge time waste. If I'm sitting at the table and I'm rolling on every one of these tables, that's a long time. And that just breaks the game down and breaks any suspension of disbelief. And it's just literally you going, okay, hold on. So, and again, this should have been in the same section as random dungeon generations, not a safe session. All right. Appendix, herbs, spices, and medicinal vegetables. So, a beginner's course to herbalism. Here are some things of foods and spices and herbs that might exist in your D&D game, and the medicinal qualities that it might have. At no point in time are we actually saying that this is actually true and that you should run out to your garden and start chewing on dandelions if you don't feel good. No, this is just things that might have been believed in the Middle Ages. Is that necessary? It's cool. It's different. It adds more flavor. How? I don't know. I mean, herbology is hardly ever a thing, is it? I don't know. Appendix K, describing magical substances. You know, because everybody wants to know what color and what flavor the potion is. Appendix L, conjured animals. Just in case you don't have the player's handbook that lists the animals you can conjure, here's the table again. Oh, this table's also in the monster manual where it should be. But no, here it is again. In case you're the DM and you need a bad guy to conjure an animal and you didn't prepare ahead of time, or a player goes, dude, I want to cast summon animals too. What can I guess? You know, if it's random and it's like, oh, fuck, fine, I'll look. Yeah, I don't know. And finally, Appendix N, the actual Appendix N. The Appendix N everybody whines and cries and complains about and talks about and is the source of D&D and is the holy grail. Takes up one page and it's literally just some suggested readings. And we've gone through this. It's not even one page. It's half a page. It's literally this chunk of text is what has caused all this nonsense about Appendix End and rules as written and how you're supposed to play the game and random tables, because everybody just sort of has come to this assumption that Appendix End is all of this. But no, Appendix End is literally just this. And it's literally just a list of some authors that you might want to read. Like Paul Anderson. We've gone through this list. We can go through it again. Paul Anderson, John Bellers, Lee Beckett, Frederick Brown, Edgar Rice Burroughs, Lynn Carter, Sprague de Camp, Pratt de Camp, August Derleth, Lord Dunsey, P.J. Farmer, Gardner Fox, R.E. Howard, of course, Sterling Lieber, Fritz Lieber, H.P. Lovecraft, of course, A. Merritt, Michael Moorcock, Andre Norton, Andrew Ulflet, Paul Fletcher, Fred Schrodinger, Margaret St. Clair, J.R. Tolkien, Jack Vance, of course, Vancian Magic Adam. Vancian Magic. You know, I read a Jack Vance book once, and I didn't really see the connection, but whatever. Stanley Weinbaum, Wade Wellman, Jack Williamson, and Roger Zelensky. So that's it. That's what all the mystery is about. Then we move on to Appendix O, the encumbrance of standard items. That should be in the player's handbook in the gear section. But just in case you want to know how much that bathtub the players just stole weighs, here it is. Appendix P is how to create a random party on the spur of the moment. So if you need to generate some NPCs or if somebody died and you need to get a real character real fast. Then we got the glossary, in case, you know, we didn't explain the words the first time. Then we got this very questionable picture of a succubus looking all like, with, what's that, a little, boobage. Oh, we can't show that today. Then we have the index, where things are. Then we have tables to generate non-player characters. So this is not an appendix. This is separate from the appendix. This is a whole nother teeny section. Then we got a random language determination table. We've got a non-player character reaction table. We got height and weights. We got encumbrance of standard items again. We got hireling costs. We've got tables for morale and obedience and loyalty. And then we got blank pages. So about 100 pages is the entire appendix. Of that, one small section is Appendix N, but that is all so really when people are referring to Appendix N or the appendix, they're referring more or less to all of this, but specifically the recommended reading books. And it's not like they're law. It's not like, St. Gygax came down from heaven and said, read these books or else. It's like, dude, here's some books that inspired us when we were writing this, but, obviously the world has changed since we wrote this, and there's other things that might inspire you. Maybe you're inspired by the works of Game of Thrones. Maybe you're inspired by the Black Company books. Maybe you're inspired by Twilight. Maybe you're inspired by Westerns. I don't know. It's your D&D game. Whatever you read is going to inspire you. Whatever movies you watch, whatever TV shows you watch is going to inspire me. My games are inspired by Saturday morning cartoons and the schlocky 80s action films like Hawk the Slayer. But anyways, if you don't have this, it's $24 with shipping. Pick it up. It's amazing. It's worth it. The appendix are a great mystery. I'm sure there is an explanation for it that's less silly than my explanation. But basically, it just feels like they were done, and then somebody was like, oh, you know what? We forgot. And then somebody's like, we need to put a list of every monsters. And they're like, fine, we'll put a list of every monsters. And then but then we need to put the same list as alphabetical. And they're like, dude, I just put no, you got to do the other list too. It's like, why do I have to put the list and then the list again? And it's like, no, you do. All right, they need a list of random shit they might find in a dungeon. Like down to the very minute detail. Why? You do. Okay, but don't put it in the same section with random dungeons. Put it in a different section. Why am I putting it in a different section? Then you need a section to generate NPCs, and then a completely separate section to generate the personalities of the NPCs and what they look like and smell like. It's like, fine, but now we're up to 100 extra pages. Couldn't we just make this a separate book? That would be unfair. We would never make a separate book of just splat and extra rules. We'll wait for Wizards of the Coast to do that. Ow, that one hurt. I'm sorry. Anyways, drive-thru RPG, print on demand, 4 weeks, $24 with shipping. Yeah. Have I in any way, shape, or form helped you understand the mystery of Appendix N or why this is considered such a sacred, holy text? It's got some great, useful tables, most of which have been replaced by random stuff you can get online. It's got a lot of advice for campaign and world building, but most of which just sort of, the games evolve, so a lot of the stuff in here doesn't really apply anymore. Players in the 2022s are not going to be the same as the players in the 80s. They're going to be wanting different things. We know that. Some of us don't like that, but it's true. There's a lot of stuff in here that just is, pointless now. And there's a lot of great stuff in here. All sorts of stuff of characters and money and time and spells and exploration and adventure generation, rules on combat and morale and melee and all the different things you would need for combat. Of course, since combat has evolved so much since then, you wouldn't read this now. But basically, you read this for the campaign building stuff, the world generation stuff, the random tables, the ideas for things like magical research, all the things that some of the other stuff doesn't cover anymore, Like a page of herbs. Today, there's going to be somebody who's playing a druid and they're out during herbology and they're like, okay, what kind of herbs can I actually find to cure rotting ghoul fever? And the DM's just going to go, you find the herbs. And then the player's going to go, no, but what are they? I want to know specifically what they are so I can find them again. And the DM's like, they're herbs. I don't know. And the player's like, no, I need to know the specific names. And the DM's like, fine, okay, I'll look it up. Jesus, give me 20 minutes. Or you could just go, here, blah. Oh, monkswort. Monkswort is a cure for rotting ghouls. Now you know the name. I don't know why you needed that information, but now you know. The next time you run into ghouls, you can go looking for Monksword. Okay? Are you happy? You just wasted 10 minutes of the game so I could look up on a plant that makes no difference in the but it was important back then. It's important now. There's a lot of questions in here that this book answers. It still has an effect on the hobby today, either directly or indirectly. It is still held up by a lot of individuals as the end-all, be-all of all information you need to know to be a DM. And I would say, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's in here that is still stands the test of time, but there's also a lot of stuff in here that has been improved upon, and there's better versions of it. A lot of the stuff in here you can now just do on this, you know? But for OG like me, yeah, I want to have a copy of it again because my original's missing, and it's just so much nostalgia. It's just, you know, it's like having a beloved friend back. And if you're just somebody who's interested in the thinkings and the evolution of the hobbies and the last stuff that, you know, Gygax worked on and just seeing how everything is evolved and all, there is a lot of good stuff in here that still stands the test of time. But there's also a lot of stuff in here where just today you're just like, ugh, I don't need to know what's in the room. I don't need to know every specific detail. My brain can fill it in. All right. We walked into a jail. Okay, my brain just automatically pictures a jail. You don't need to describe it to me unless it's important to the actual encounter. I don't care that there's some moss on the wall. Sure, it adds flavor, but, you know, my brain can add more flavor. Buy this, get it. Hopefully, reading this, you can understand the hidden secrets of Appendix N and the appendixes. Maybe read some of the suggested books. Maybe you have some books you suggest on your own. I mean, I would highly recommend the Black Company books if you've never read them. So, yeah, there we go. I'm the OGGM. That's it for this week. I will see you on Monday unless something important happens. Till next time, stay warm, stay safe, and stay off my land.